We are back. This is the Intel Hub. I'm your host, Shepard Ambellis. Right now, we got Michael Sarian with us. His website, of course, is michaelsarian.com. He was born in Northern Ireland. Michael Sarian is an expert on the occult histories of Ireland and America. He has made the deepest reaches into Atlantis, the origins of evil, and the Irish origins of civilization. He is an author of the acclaimed books Atlantis, Alien Visitation, and Genetic Manipulation, Astro Theory, and more. He is also the producer of Origins of Oracles, the DVD series, and the Architects of Control DVD series. Michael Sarian, welcome to the Intel Hub.
All right, Shepard, thanks a lot. Thanks for the invitation. Nice to be on.
Absolutely. How have you been lately, Michael? You know, what have you been up to?
Busy. Writing and just filming and trying to, you got, 11 or 12 websites to continue to update and monitor, the forum and just various other DVD projects. So it's always busy.
Absolutely. I know how hard it is just to keep my website going, so 11 or 12 of them. It's so important to understand the past, to know what can happen in the future. I thought we could start with the origins of evil. Michael, where might this power structure have first been contrived? How did this oligarchy come to be?
Well, it's certainly back in history, and different teachers have different theories. I tend to think that things heated up a lot around about the time of the reign of the Pharaoh Akhenaten, but evil as we know it, or injustice and war and all of these things, they go back for a long, long time. There's one theorist who's actually a disciple of Wilhelm Reich. His name is James DeMille, and he has a very elaborate theory that talks about the coming of the patriarchs and the patriarchal system, replacing the matriarchal system. And he's not the only one who dates war and conquest from that type of period. And of course that would be, he looks at a lot of earth changes as well. He's kind of he always interested me because he's one of these people that does, like I do, look at earth changes, although his earth changes are more about the drying up and the changes, from like a wet climate to a more dry sort of climate, the creation of deserts and things like that. So there's that kind of thesis as well that's semi-scientific. I mean, he's actually very scientific, but the scientific community, just simply doesn't even accept his theories. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. Is it this thing about the solar cults and the change over to the masculine? Or is it something, again, with this warped brand of solar cultism coming out of Akhenaten? Or does it even, go back even further than that? But even in the stories of the earliest cultures, even when it comes to talking about the gods are always having conflicts. The gods are fighting amongst each other. Brothers, Cain and Abel type situations, or Enlil and Enki. So the whole concept of conquest is even transmuted or transmogrified to the realm of mythology, to the gods. It's not just necessarily a human issue that started with human beings.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. This oligarchy, these elites, how were they able to dupe the masses from the beginning? What put these guys above the general population in perception?
Well, that's a really, really good question, and it boils down to the fact that they're not really above anybody. Their quest for physical domination and power is actually rooted entirely in the fact that they are, from a human point of view, very low-grade people, inferior beings, actually. And they make use of a couple of aspects or traits that came in after the cataclysm that I talk about in my Atlantis book. I talked about how it wasn't just earth changes, it was genetic manipulation, it was subsequent earth traumas, it was the war of the gods. There was about 3 to 4 different reasons for the trauma that affected consciousness, that basically made consciousness deranged. And then out of that derangement comes a whole other laundry list of sub-traumas, and the controllers their ancestors always used that. They used the fact that man, now being traumatized, needed to galvanize himself into groups, which eventually leads to cities, you know. So instead of being hunter-gatherers in harmony with nature and more independent, now people needed to huddle up, live in enclosed spaces, fight for their territory and preserve it, live in walled cities, cultivate animals, fear-based sort of ideas. This then assisted those at the top, who would have always been a sort of a leisure class. This helped them to gain power, because you can't have power over people that are hunter-gatherers and spread all over the territories. You know, that's impossible. Even Native American Indian groups fall into these categories. They have a completely different structure of organization based on whether they're plains people or as to whether they're more, you know, homogenous and so on. And this was the same in ancient days. Then they made use of the fact that there was this, as I say, the self of a man had been completely traumatized, and then when you don't have inner security, it becomes very easy then for individuals, basically non-individuals, to then rely on other human beings. And this brings certain benefits, of course, if you're looking at it purely neutrally, but psychologically speaking, it brings a lot of problems. When you have so little sense of self, and you're not only in fear of nature, but you have no core anymore, no inner guidance, then you rely on your brothers and you rely on the tribe. So that's when we look back in history, we're seeing this tribal thing going on, and nobody stops and asks, why that as opposed to something else? Why do men live together in tribes? We have the usual answers for that. But, you know, what would have really caused that in the first place in a world that's, you know, very large, and what coerced men to live in these sort of structures and have the bizarre rituals that they do? And then I feel that this is one of the reasons that this leisure class, this overclass, started to look not at individuals but as mass movements, the herd, how to control the herd, to enslave them, because there's already something inside human beings that wants to enslave itself, something that needs to rely desperately on other people. And this is you fast forward to today, and it becomes the same problem of the individual versus the collective. The individual is a threat. He always has been, and he still is.
Oh yeah, and you know, we've seen these oligarchs get their way into various countries. In your opinion, how did they salt their way? You know, how did they get their greedy little tentacles into the nation of America? How did that all come about? And can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, well, that was really basically from day one. It goes right back to the British East India Company, the Massachusetts Bay Company, the Hudson Bay Company, and the Virginia Company, and lots of other companies. And I think, apart from Thomas Jefferson, who's the most outstanding one who didn't belong to any of these organizations, and didn't seem to really care about joining any of them, although he was very close friends and associates with very powerful founding fathers who were members of them. So he's not completely exonerated. It's just that he had a particular idiosyncrasy where he didn't care about money. So in that instance, he's a little bit exonerated. But on the whole, the rest of the so-called founding fathers were money-grubbing, insanely corporate people who were desperate on grabbing the land. This goes for Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton and a lot of other creatures that we lionize today, and statues are built on them. And they wanted the land. They wanted the land. People know that, you know, you'll always hear, it's a traditional story, the white settlers came and killed off the Indians, and that's about all you hear, like that's the headline. Hey, let's get into detail about it. It's not just about killing off Indians, it's about a wholesale land grab. And the trouble is, though, that those people, in my estimation, and it's quite easy to prove it, and I'm not the only one who said this. There's many alternative people who've said this, and there's many mainstream people who've said this. If you get the book by Nicholas Hagar called, oh my God, what's it called? The Secret History of America or something. It totally goes into the fact, A Secret Founding of America or something like that. He emphasizes the fact that these so-called American founding fathers and robber barons and basically the elite, the oligarchs, like you say, these people were not just operating autonomously. That's what history books in America put in front of you, that these people, whether they